Okay, it's 1:30. If I could have your attention, please. We'll call the meeting to order. So thank you for coming, everybody. Today is the first new Chartered Clubs Committee meeting for fiscal year 2022-2023. My name is Jack Leary. I am the committee chairman, and I will call the meeting to order. Let me get my schedule out here. We've established a quorum. We have 5 of our members here present. We have on the phone Carol Card and Kathy Estes. Carol and Kathy, can you hear me?
Yes, I can. This is Kathy.
Yes, Jack, this is Carol, loud
Okay.
and clear.
Great, thanks. Okay, so our first order of business will be to approve the minutes from the last meeting of the Chartered Clubs Committee from the 3rd of May. If I do not hear any objections, then I hear no objections. The meeting minutes will be accepted as written. Okay, so that takes care of the approval of minutes. Now we'll get into our housekeeping. Microphone usage for everybody here on stage. The way you use the microphone is when you want to talk, make sure it's close to you. Press the button that says push. You'll get a green light that turns on. And then when you're done, push the button again to turn you off so we don't hear any side comments. So I'm going to ask Tom to everybody go through this process.
Test 1, 2, test. There we go.
Okay. Test 1, 2. Yet? I'm shy. It's on, right?
Test 1, 2.
Test. Test 1, 2.
Test 1, 2.
Okay, thanks everybody. And that's a reminder, please turn off your phones, turn off the ringers, put them in airplane mode or your watches if you've got an Apple Watch. So please do that, thank you. The committee introductions, we have several new members this year. So I'd like to have everybody just spend a minute with your name, maybe how long you've lived in Sun City West and why you wanted to be on the committee. So Tom, we'll start with you.
Okay, Tom Ochtenberg. I've lived in Sun City West for 9 years now. I'm second generation. My parents were original owners back in '82. My mother still lives here. I'm involved in several clubs and just wanted to be part of it.
I'll get it right this time. I'm Connie Kopf. I've been in Sun City West 5 years today. And I actually helped my mother move in 40-some years ago. And at the time I thought, wow, what a neat place for her to retire and stay busy while I was elsewhere raising my family. And then I came here 5 years ago to help care for her. And I've spent the last 2 years on the yoga board, and it has really developed an awareness in me of the importance of the clubs, the chartered clubs within the Sun City West, helping it to be a premier community. And as I got involved in activities through the board, and through, I just began to learn more about the clubs, and I just really want to serve and help preserve the integrity of this community and know more about it.
I'm Vicki Erla. I've been here we've been here since 2012 and part-time. And in 2014, I said, okay, I'm retiring now from 40 years of teaching high school in New Jersey. And immediately became part of the yoga club. And somehow I got drafted a few years later to be the president. And then I ended up being the vice president for 2 years to assist the incoming president. And somewhere between the last month or two of me being president of the club and becoming vice president of the club, the movement started to get the yoga studio, which is at Beardsley. And so that was a big eye-opener about how all of that works, and we were at all different committees and at many of these meetings. And so I got bored after I was no longer an officer, and I said, I think I'm going to look into being on a committee, and this was the one that interested me most, so here I am.
Thanks, Vicki. And as Vicki said, yes, I'm here. I've been here 5 years. And I started out as a yoga club attendee, and Vicki drafted me to be the president, and I've done that for 4 years now. The reason I'm on the committee and on the governing board is that I feel the chartered clubs are the heart and soul of Sun City West. They really are. And we need to take the long history that we have and make sure that it continues, but we also need to make sure that it's updated for current dates, current activities, and those kinds of things. So those are the types of things that the committee will be looking at this year.
I'm Judy Thompson, and we've been in Sun City West 4 years, just starting our 5th year. I've been on a couple boards on other committees, and it kind of made me think globally beyond those clubs, or at least to think that I would like to. And I like to help things run smoothly. So that's the reason I enjoy being on this Chartered Club Committee, because as he said, they are the heart and soul of Sun City West.
I'm Karen Justice. I'm also a second generation Sun City West person. My parents were one of the first people to move in here. They lived on a cul-de-sac off a conquistador that backed up to old El Mirage Road. And when I came to help them move in, happened to be the time when the river flooded and the Bell Road Bridge went out. And all we did was pray that it didn't come up any higher. But my parents had the fortune to be over at the pool one day, and someone took their picture. And they moved in here when they were 55. So they asked if they could use their picture for an ad, and the next thing my mother knew, they were on a billboard down there by the Bell Road Bridge. And it was fun at first, but when she ended up at 85 going over that bridge, she hated it every time we had to do it. I got involved with this particular club because I was a president of PVP, and we went through some rough patches for a while, and we had some fantastic club liaisons who really made it possible for us to learn to work together and get things done.
Carol, do you want to let us know why you're here?
Sure. I've lived in Sun City West for 6 years. I moved here from Tucson when I retired as a registered nurse after 40 years, caring for patients, caring for an ailing husband and ailing parents. So it's kind of in my blood to care for people, to fix things if they're not quite right. And my involvement in several clubs and on this board for the 2nd year is maybe to do more of that, to offer whatever I can to problem solve.
Okay, thank you, Karen. Kathy?
Hi there. I have been in Sun City West for 4 years, and I served on the Chartered Club Committee last year. Karen and I were liaisons to the Arts and Crafts Clubs. That was a really wonderful experience. I learned so much from the different clubs. Agree, they are the heart and soul of this community. And I hope that I can continue to help build those relationships with the clubs, with the staff, and to continue to get some of the clubs to cooperate with each other, communicate with each other, and share information among the different clubs, because I found that's really, really helpful. There's always information for people to learn. So that's why I'm here.
Okay, thank you. Okay, the next item on our agenda is the Rec Center of the Sun City West Committee roster handout. This is for your information only. This has got every committee member for all of the standing committees. It is not for public consumption, and as changes are made to the roster, you will get updates from those. So you should know everybody who's on you will know everybody who's on that list. And any questions on that? Okay. So then Karen is going to go over next how to use BoardDocs and how to access YouTube. So you may want to watch the screen up here.
Thanks, Jack. Again, my name is Karen Repkin. I'm the assistant to the board. So I help out with all of the board's committees as well as the board. So I'm just going to do this very quickly. Everybody can know if they need help, they can always contact me in order to get information about how to access BoardDocs. For those of you that don't know, BoardDocs is a system, a governance system that we subscribe to in order to comply with open meeting laws in the state of Arizona. We put all of our meeting information up. We have to buy open meeting law, and we put up our minutes, agendas, and everything else. Is there something that's, I see? All right. So without any further ado here, how does one go to BoardDocs? Dave, you can go to a search engine for me like Chrome, which many of you may have. You may have Safari, you may have other search engines. And by the way, there is an attachment. You're going to learn how to look at attachments by me doing this today. And all of these step-by-step instructions pretty much are going to be in there for those of you who might be taking notes, okay? So we go, okay, he's already popped to BoardDocs. Now, if we were to go to Chrome, the way that you search for anything like, how do I bake a chicken recipe? You go to the top to the browser bar, you would type in gb.suncitywest.com. So if you look up at the top, do you see how that's been typed into the browser bar? And what it does is it brings up BoardDocs. This is the homepage of BoardDocs. So again, all you have to type is gb.suncitywest.com. Be sure to spell Sun City West out. Just like on the website, you have to spell the words out. And up comes BoardDocs. Now, the meetings are in the middle. Every meeting that you see there, and Dave, as you scroll down, notice how it says show all. Because if you notice, you don't see the meeting we're in, and that's because you have to hit show all, and there it is, the chartered there at the bottom, the charter clubs meeting, the one we're sitting in. So generally, you can look at anything that's in that list means it's an upcoming meeting, and I've already posted the agenda there. So if we click, we go back to charter clubs, for example, today's meeting. You can click on that, Dave, please. And up comes the ability to view or print the agenda. The most common question I get is, how do I print the agenda? You print it right there. There's an icon at the bottom that you can see there that he's pointing to. Now let's open up the view the agenda, because it's the last thing I'm really going to show you in this abbreviated session. So the agenda is along the left side of the page. A lot of people will say to me, oh my gosh, it just says that there's a meeting, there's no agenda. Well, you have to look at the left side of your screen. That's where the agenda is. He's going up and down. You'll notice that I'm speaking at 3:04, and notice there's an attachment. I don't want you, that's the attachment you would open. Well, let's open it. I mean, there's nothing secret about it. So you double click on that. If you see those little file icons, that means there's an attachment to look at for that particular agenda item. So now, notice I call it a cheat, which is what it is. If you double click on that, Dave, please, to open it. There it is. And notice how I start with how to get to, this is what I'm going through right now, okay? So it's all there, in any agenda line item, as we call them, that has one of those little file folders means that there is an attachment to look at, okay? So now I'm going to not really spend a lot of more time, much more time, but I'm going to show you at the top, and you can just sort of move your mouse back and forth up there, Dave. See, like all those items up there are different tabs. We're not going to open them in the interest of time, But under policies, you can find the Sun City West bylaws, the policies. You can find everything there, something called standing rules. It's all listed there. And under library, another common misperception is that that means the R.H. Johnson Library. No, it doesn't. It means a collection of documents. And if you drop that down when you're at home and you want to kind of play around in BoardDocs when you're especially bored, you can see that there are going to be all kinds of attachments in there, including all of our meeting dates and so forth and so on, okay? So this has been a pretty quick cursory introduction to BoardDocs. Any questions? Okay, we're good. Then I'm going to cover how to get to YouTube, because there are people that are still calling that don't know how to watch our meetings on YouTube. And so what you do is you go to the Sun City West website in order to look at all our meetings. You'll be able to see this meeting in a few hours when Martin, our YouTube guy up there, puts it up. Okay, so you go to that home page, and I always call it the nighttime pool picture for the moment. That's what's on it. Go to the bottom, scroll all the way down, and there are 4 icons. The rightmost, that little red box, is the YouTube icon box. Double click on that. Thank you. And up comes, again, you'll see home videos. Please click on videos, that second tab. And you will see in backwards order all of the meetings of the board and committees and other relevant sort of videos, okay? So the most recent one, you can see it right there. We're in the middle of it, Charter Clubs. Okay, so you can go back in time, by the way, and look at any video since we've started posting these. Katie, when did we start YouTube? Do you remember offhand, after COVID or during COVID? Having them online. But the meetings, okay, 2-3 years ago. So you can go back through all sorts of meetings if you so desire. Okay, now the one thing that I'm going to show you, and since I've showed you how to get to the attachment, I'm going to let you all look at that on your own time, but I want to show you one important thing. So let's open up, let's go to a different meeting. Let's go back to the special meeting in the top row, Dave. I'm making Dave do this on the spur of the moment. Double click on that, please. Now, what I want to show you, and we'll see if it comes up on this one. So I want to scroll down, because if it's not up yet, oh, so I bet this may not be a good example. So let's back out of this. And let's go to the Governing Board Workshop from June 2022. Let's click on that. And what I want to show you is something very interesting. So there's the beginning of the meeting. It's going to start out. You all are aware. Dave, if you hover over the bottom of the picture, you'll see that red line that comes up. That's how you can pull that forward if you don't want to watch the entire meeting at any point in time. But I want to show you a little trick, and Martin, our YouTube guys, put this on. Scroll down a little bit, please. And see where it says Show More? Click on that Show More. Right, you're near it, there to the left. There you go, and go down. Okay, so the parts of the meeting now by times, those are the agenda sections of the meeting. So you can click on any one of those and it will take you right to the spot in the agenda that you might want to view instead of having to scroll around and guess where things are on that video. Okay, so that's a little trick a lot of people don't know about, saves you a lot of time. And that I'm not going to go through a lot of this because my attachment is attached, as I showed you all, to the agenda today, and that's what you can use. Okay? Any questions? No? Committee? All right, that's all I'm going to cover, so thank you.
Thanks, Karen. The last item under our admin and housekeeping is Jan Carlberg is here to introduce one of her new people. Is there a microphone back there? Stand up, face the audience.
Hi, Hi, I'm Jan Carlberg. I know a lot of you, familiar faces. Hi. And a lot of you have already met Glenn Blackshear. He is my sidekick, so he's doing a phenomenal job. Yeah, he's doing a phenomenal job, great personality, and you'll leave laughing. So if you need anything, just get a hold of either one of us. We're always available.
Any
Good.
questions? Okay, thank you, Jan. Welcome, Glenn.
Thank you.
Okay, staff reports. Casey, you're up.
Sure. That's a pretty good piggyback because we have a lot of new staff coming in, and I want to introduce one of our new staff. Those of you that have probably been in the MailChimps knew that Phil, he'll be back, but just in a different tie, if you will. So I have hired Christy Constantine. Did I say it right? Oh, dang it. Well, we were saying 2 T's. Now I got to remember the O. So sorry about that. So you guys may see some emails coming from Christy. And then I also have brought Tim Peterson from Beardsley on board as well. He begins September 19th. So just be prepared for some new names coming through on maybe Chartered Club, which it's actually from MailChimp. So you may see their names there. So please welcome them. Don't scare them. Be nice. You can come to me on the harder stuff. They're here to help and assist, and agreed with Jack that you guys are the heart and soul of Sun City West. So definitely want to keep things aboard there. In lieu with that, with MailChimp, you'll see those come frequently, definitely on a monthly basis, and maybe twice a month if need be. So please feel free to reply to that, and Christy checks on those. If she needs to forward it to me, then that's how I have been communicating with a lot of you in the last month. So thank you for being active with that as well. Club track, we have not made it through a whole season, but as we keep kicking along, I'm running numbers. Dave Gebauer back there cranks out all of the reports for me, and right now we don't have a whole lot going on because we don't have anything to compare to. And we do know that you get your monthly reports. If you have questions, just be sure to send it to clubtrack@suncitywest.com. In addition to, if you need to add a member, please do not send it to Phil. It's still coming through with Phil. No more Phil. Please send all of those inquiries to clubtrack@suncitywest.com. Okay? I've put that on the last few MailChimps, and they're still going to Phil. So no more Phil. Clubtrack@suncitywest.com, please. Should I just go right into Liaison? We don't really have reports right now. We have a brand new committee on board right now. So in the future, if they have anything that they want to communicate with us, then this is their time to communicate. In the past, we have assigned the liaisons with categories. Last year, we started the categories. I think it went pretty well. So hopefully now that we kind of have somewhat of a system in place, we can utilize your guys' expertise a little bit better.
And we have, because we have new members on the committee and some old members who have rolled off, there are some assignments that will be made, and I'll get with each person to do that. I will assume that those who currently have assignments will want to keep those assignments. If you do not, let me know, and we'll change that. Okay, so we're done with liaisons. Any questions from the committee here on that? Any questions on that? Yes, Judy.
Casey, is Tim still at Beardsley then, or who's taking that job?
They have not found a replacement. He is going to be working with us a little bit on the transition. So he'll still be around, but getting a hold of him is not going to be per his cell phone like it has in the past.
Okay, do we have any questions from the audience?
Yeah, this is Carol. I have a question.
Go ahead, Carol.
Is there any way we could have a badge or some sort of identifier when we go to these clubs and say, we're a liaison from the Chartered Club Committee, just something to identify us?
There are 3 badges that say Chartered Club Liaison. Clearly, we need more. So Casey, I don't know if you have any, or I talked to Dory at the beginning of the meeting. She hasn't. Yeah.
I'll order more.
Okay.
I'll take one of the most recent ones and make sure it matches everybody's so that you have a new one.
Okay, we'll order more.
Great, thank you.
Okay, thank you. Kathy, did you have anything?
Oh, I said thanks. We needed the badges. That would be very helpful.
Okay. Any other questions from the committee? Okay, now from the audience. Come on down front, please. And we'll ask that you, when you get up there, if you can sign in and also give us your name and your rec card number.
Tracy Anderson, 132045. I'm the president of Lady Putters. How do we find out who our new liaison is going to be since Phil was our liaison? Is there going to be a published list of all liaisons and who they, excuse me, are covering?
Yes, there will be a published list.
When might we expect that list?
We can put it in the Chartered Club emailing. Casey, can we do that?
Yeah, so for the Golf Council, I will send that out to Jim, and then we will definitely I'll be at your first Golf Council meeting this month. So for right now, it's me, because I've been working with them a little bit, so for now, it's me.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, any other questions? Okay, we're going to move on to new business then. For the committee, we're going to review the committee member handbook. Hopefully you've had a chance to see that. I think it was one of the summer readings that I asked you to do. Basically what this committee handbook does is it tells you what the roles of a governing board committee member are, what you're supposed to do. So I'm not going to go through this in any great detail. Who has not read it? Okay, everybody has read it. So are there any questions on this? Anything that needs to be clarified? Okay, everybody's good and you accept the roles as they have been described. Okay, easy, that was done. Okay, next one is 5.02, the Chartered Clubs Committee Description. This is from the policy statement C03, and it's the charge of the standing committees. We're only going to look at number 1.3. We're not going to look at all of them. The Chartered Club Committee shall act as the liaison from between the governing board and the chartered clubs. Because we are a standing committee of the governing board, we serve the governing board. At the request of the governing board or the general manager, this committee shall make recommendations, investigate and make recommendations regarding chartered club activities. The committee shall continually assess the club's adherence to the chartered club rules, regulations, and procedures, the RRMPs, and annually make recommendations to the general manager and governing board for amending them. This committee, working in conjunction with the Properties Committee, shall review all requests the general manager receives for additions, modifications, or use or assignment of club facilities. And as a byproduct of that, we will also be working with the Budget and Finance Committee as well. So any club that comes to us with a request for a capital item, it comes to this committee first. If it passes this committee, it goes to the Properties Committee. If it passes that, it then goes to BNF, and then it goes to the Governing Board. So there's a lot of checks and balances along the way. And then the final statement from that definition, the committee chair shall make recommendations to the general manager for capital equipment and projects by December 1 each year. Are there any questions on those from the committee? Any disagreement? You accept all of those provisions? Okay, good deal. Any questions from the audience? Please go to the microphone.
Could you just explain to me the difference between the governing board and the recreation department? So the recreation department, Sun City West.
Can you state your name and your?
My name is Malkins, 133796. Can you tell me the difference?
We couldn't hear you.
Malkins, M-U-L-K-I-N-S.
Is there a green light on the top of the microphone?
No. Okay. Malkins, 133796. Can you explain to me the difference between the governing board and the recreation department, which Casey's a member of?
Sure.
And Bill Swing.
They're two separate entities. So the question was, what is the difference between the governing board and the the operations department? Is how we designate them. The governing board is, think of this as a corporation. As such, the governing board is like the board of directors of a corporation, whereas the general manager might be equivalent to the chief executive officer of a corporation. They handle the day-to-day operations of the business. This board handles the governance and strategic aspects of the recreation centers of Sun City West. Bill Schwind, Katie, the others are all day-to-day operations. They're responsible for making sure that things continue to work in the day-to-day business.
So who makes the final decision? You gotta go up to the mic. Who makes the final decision?
Depends on the subject.
Should I give you one?
Sure.
The softball club, okay? We have a supposed reciprocal agreement with Sun City. Is that true?
That's my understanding, yes.
So we have a reciprocal agreement with them. Who makes the final decision as to whether we continue this every year, because it's supposed to be voted on every year in the RRMPs? It says it is not guaranteed. Who makes the final decision on that? Because I've been here playing since 2014, and it's only been voted on once, and it's supposed to be voted on every year. So obviously someone's making a decision not to vote on it, even though the RRMPs say you are supposed to vote on it. I would just like a definition of that.
So you would have to look at your bylaws, the club bylaws. And if the bylaws are silent on it, then you would have to go to the RRMPs, and that would explain who would do that. If the RRMPs are silent, then it comes to the governing board.
But how do I get to the governing board? Because obviously it's not been voted on. It's only been voted on once since 2012. It's supposed to be voted on every year. So how do I get to the governing board?
So your entry to the governing board is through Casey.
Okay, thank you very much.
Okay, go. Casey?
All right, so there's no voting based off the RRMPs or rules, regulations, and procedures for those of you that don't know the acronym. Your bylaws, yours, the softball clubs, I've been working with Craig on this, are what you're supposed to be voting on as a club. That's how your bylaws are written. So that is, it's not based off of reciprocity through the rec centers. And you guys have a little bit different lingo in your bylaws called commingling. So Bill Schwind is working on this with other communities as we speak. I did send Craig an email explaining all of that last week. I'm happy if you forward that to your club. And they are literally right now working on that process as we speak with all clubs, because you're not the only club that has reciprocity.
We're not the only club with reciprocity, you say, right? Is the Sun City Softball Club that everyone who's a member and lives here pays dues for, and the money goes toward the recreation fees? Is there any other clubs beside us that allows people to come here and play for free? Because we do that.
Okay, so that's reciprocity. It has to be like for like. And again, working on this with a few other clubs, it's a little inconsistent through each club. So we are working with softball, lawn bowling, tennis, pickleball, a couple card clubs, bocce, pretty much any sporting club with the exception of golf.
Can you explain the definition of like for like?
If you play here once a week, you have to play there once a week.
Can I explain my definition of what I think like the like should be? Am I allowed to say this here?
We can have a discussion about it, but these are what our RMPs have stated since before my time, 7 years here. So if you wanted to have a conversation with Mr. Leary here and bring it to myself, we can see what we can do to move forward.
I will say that I think this is an issue that we best discuss offline, but I will say that the issue of the commingling, reciprocity, leagues, and tournaments are all, there's not a single approach to that, and there's a lot of questions and doubt and misunderstanding about what's going to happen. That's one of the things we're going to tackle this year.
Can I just ask you a quick question, Jack?
Sure.
When you say like, everybody in this room who pays recreation fees to Sun City West, approximately 2 years ago, invested $170,000 in the softball field. Sun City did the same thing, only they backed up a truck and dumped a load of dirt on their field, and it cost them $1,500. Now, is that equal to our club? And when we spent for fiscal 2023, you're also going to add another additional $400,000 to our field, and they got a load of dirt. How's that fair for us? And the club is making us go there. We don't have no choice. I have to get in my car and drive to 18 miles round trip down there. How's that fair to me?
Well, that's one of the issues, one of the reasons why we have to revisit this issue.
Thank you for your time.
Good questions. Any other questions? Okay, Casey, you want to talk about the bylaws?
13 are in progress and still 35 yet I have not reached out to. So I know a few of you have reached out and we're trying to get to you and let you know that it's coming, I promise. It is a very tedious task, so I want to make sure it's done right the first time. Linda sent me something today. We found a discrepancy, so there's just some things that we always have to look back and make sure what your current bylaws read mirror what the new formatting reads, so that nothing changes. And that's pretty much where I stand at this point for that.
Ron, do you want to talk about?
I can.
You can?
Do you not want to have, does anybody have questions about the bylaws? I'd like to answer them.
Any questions about bylaws? Any questions from the committee? No? Okay, any questions from the audience? This is my first time.
Yep.
Okay, come on down.
Lou Bonar. I'm the president of two card clubs, the Monday Pinochle Group and the Saturday Night Gamesters. Concerning...
Record number, please.
Well, 126160. Concerning the bylaws, I understand the need for consistency, but when Casey, you said something about we're not changing the bylaws, we're just making a consistent format. What's the format with this guest privilege and who pays and where that money goes?
I would say hold that question. We'll answer that in a couple of agenda items.
Or it's coming up later?
You bet.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions?
Okay.
Okay, Charter Club of the Month.
Okay, so we did not do one last month. We didn't have a committee, and we have a brand new committee. So we did not do one for this month either. We started this in March this last year. So I listed our past winners, March through July. So congratulations to everybody there. I still need to send out my to Encore Needle. They were going through some leadership changes when this all occurred, so I still need to get with Encore Needle for theirs. But just to kind of go over, I did this because we were going through the change of the RRMPs last year, and boy, was there a lot of tension, if you will. So I tried to bring up some nice thing that we could do while all these clubs are trying to be patient with all the changes going on. So we started this in March. And it actually started with me, but I need the committee's participation in order for it to be successful. You guys are in talking to the clubs, and you are, and I think it's a little bit more. If Tom sends me a club, and Vicky sends me a club, and Mary Kay sends me a club of their recommendations, I will send that to all the liaisons, and then they'll vote on whoever comes back with this club is who I choose. That's how we come up with it. So it's not coming from me, it's coming from your committee. Then I will reach out to the clubs and have them attend the meeting, hopefully, and so we can get a nice little picture for a little PR. And then we also recognize them on the SCW Clubs page, very front page as well. Some examples and reasons to recognize clubs is charity events and/or activities, club participation. Haven't gotten that, but I do know a few clubs have 99% participation, which is pretty awesome. Creativity and compliance with the rec centers and valued efforts. So, for example, Palo Verde Panthers was recognized for their 501c3 achievement, and they were pretty much our first testing club for that conversion. So they went through a lot, and they were highly recognized. We will start that next month.
Okay, and we will start that next month. And as a to-do for the committee members, in order to make this process a little more transparent, I think it would help if we had a list of criteria that could be used to make the decision on how a club should be elected or selected for the club of the month. So what I'd like you to do before the next club selection is due is let's put together a list of criteria and take a look at those and see what we can come up with to help clarify this so that every club knows, how they're being measured and where they're going to be successful as a club of the month or a nominee or whatever. So I would really like to have something that we can have for all of the clubs to see, and we'll publish those as well. So we'll do that. So when is the next list due, Casey?
I'll usually reach out mid-September, that would be this month, and I will wait for your comments to come through, and then I'll send, usually we're always the first Tuesday of the month, so I'll send something out the week before, and so you pretty much have a week lead time to get back to me.
Okay, so then if we can have, today's the 6th, if we can have a list of criteria by the 20th.
That's fine.
That'll give us 2 weeks to put something together then. Okay. Lisa, do you have something? Yeah, we're ready.
Lisa Vines, 123774. Oh, I'm sorry, can we get that screenshot back up, please? Thank you. So this is wonderful. I think it's great. I just have one little suggestion under club participation, where it says during our monthly reports, it says, I can see what clubs have the highest participation report. Maybe instead of saying I can see, we should change that to we can see.
Totally noted.
It just seems
Thank
like
you.
it's a little.
I usually never use that word I. Sorry, I
Yeah,
apologize.
no, it's because this is wonderful and it's such a great thing for the community. And I think all the clubs really appreciate it. So that's all.
Okay, thank you, Lisa. Okay, Casey, you want to talk about Appendix B? And this goes back to, do we have a, this goes back to the question that came up earlier about the fees.
Yep.
Go ahead, Casey.
All right. When I submitted this to Jack last week, we also discussed some other things. So this is an open discussion, just so everybody knows. As I've been working with many of the clubs, specifically the smaller clubs that don't generate much revenue, Appendix B was an issue. If you don't know what Appendix B is, it is part of the new bylaws, and basically it's a definition page for club guests. Within this piece, it says, as a non-recreation card holder, club non-member. So I am not a homeowner here, but if I was a guest of yours, this would be me, if I wasn't employed, by the way. It says the association guest fee is required. Well, we limit the amount, per your bylaws, we limit the amount of guests, non-resident guests, that you are allowed. So this is something that is, I would like just the whole thing personally removed, and hopefully I can get some support and better definitions in the RRMPs on these.
So Casey, I think that this Appendix B was slipped into the template, the bylaw template, and the association fee is required. That is the association fee is to help defray expenses when guests come and use our facilities and our assets, and they put additional wear and tear on those assets. However, the guest association fee required for clubs is a hard one to manage. It's a hard one for the clubs to ask their guests to pay. I'm sorry, you can't come into the photography club because you have to go over here and pay the $5 and then come back with your receipt. It's also unenforceable because a guest could come in and the rec centers would never know about it if it was never done. So there's that. The other part of it is there is a policy statement in the facilities policy 8, paragraph 4.5, that says a guest credit, which is the term used to describe this fee, a guest credit may not be used to participate in chartered club activities. So this definition says you have to pay it, but then the policy says that you cannot use it to participate. So it's kind of a it's at loggerheads. So I think at this point, and I'm going to ask this of the committee, we'll have some discussion on this. What are your thoughts on this apparent conflict? Who wants to start?
Well, I can say this is real. I mean, if you have, say, somebody wants to come and play euchre on Thursday night and they're bringing a guest. Well, we start at 5:30. The rec centers are not open. We have, frankly, never gone to the rec center to have them buy a daily pass in order to play cards at night. And so it definitely needs to be looked at if that's an expectation of clubs that are having people come as guests for things like cards.
Jack?
Yes.
This is Kathy.
Yeah, Kathy.
So if we do away with this policy, as I'm understanding it, the clubs themselves could have a guest come in to participate. And what we're talking about is not charging that guest a participation fee. Is that correct?
What we're talking about here is either removing Appendix B entirely or replacing it with something that's more clearly defined, or doing, as you said, not charging them the daily fee. Unless there's other options that somebody else can think of.
If I'm understanding this right, say we have a guest who comes in who pays the fee to go to the pool in the morning. That fee does not also apply to them attending a club function in that afternoon. But it would apply to going to other, to a different pool or mini golf or something like that.
It would apply for those types of things, yes.
And is there a limit for charter club guests, how many times a guest can come, particularly one who is a resident, how many times they can come without joining the club?
Yes, all bylaws have a clause to that effect. The number of times is a decision of the club. Is that right, Casey?
It is, and it's fairly low. There's some that are 2, 3 before having to join. You can be a guest of a member 3 times before joining the club, but the non-resident then has 2, 3, 4 times that they can participate on an annual basis. So this is basically telling you if you brought somebody in, we'll just say 4 times, they are required to pay the $5 guest fee for that, in addition to probably your club guest fee, which a lot of clubs do tag on as well.
Okay, another question would be for events such as the concerts in the park where each rec card holder can get 8 tickets. So presumably the other 7 tickets other than themselves may go to guests and non-residents. But they're paying the same fee the rest of us pay to attend.
That is not the scope of this discussion.
My biggest concern is when we're rewriting these things, if we look like we're erasing the fee altogether, that we have to consider, somebody brought up, if you bring up tennis or something, and we're charging, if my grandkids come and want to play tennis and go over and play pickleball with my husband and I pay a fee for them. How is that different than if 2 people come and they're in a club or they're from Sun City or something? I think we have to look at the fairness to residents' costs versus just being in a club. I don't think anyone should have a better deal than somebody who's living here and already paying for the maintenance of the facilities.
And that's exactly right. And the bylaws of each club say that a guest may not have greater benefits than a Sun City West resident or member.
Correct. Well, obviously there's conflicting statements from our policy statement, the FA8 versus the definition piece in here of Appendix B.
The only one that this committee can affect is how Appendix B is handled. So either we can leave it, modify it, or remove it. I mean, those are our 3 basic changes. Or we could also table this and not do anything at this point. That's always an option.
Yeah.
Not a good one, but.
I really think this needs to be addressed, because when we were working on bylaws, it was almost like, oh dear, so you've always got it in the back of your head that maybe we're not doing this correctly. So I really think it needs to be addressed.
And Judy, how would you propose to address it?
Good question. Now some clubs are charging like $3. If they're allowing a visitor to come 3 times, when that person comes, they have to pay $3 each time. For them to tack on another $5 fee doesn't necessarily feel good to me. But I really think we just need to sit down and have a discussion on this, because I'm thinking about the clubs I'm involved in. Others have other opinions or ways that they're handling the situation. I honestly don't think that it's fair to tack on the $5 fee for somebody just to play euchre once a month.
Anybody else on the committee? Yes, Karen.
I think part of the problem we're having is we're trying to compare apples to oranges just because it's fruit, and it's not working. I think some clubs, your sister-in-law comes to visit, so you take her up to the club room with you for a visit. That's a guest. That's a lot in our clubs, what we see. Guests cannot have privileges over members, like taking classes, doing certain projects, using equipment, things like that. I think where we have problems is for some of the clubs, like craft clubs, it's one thing. For sports clubs, it's a totally different, I hate to say ball game, no pun intended, but it is, and I understand where you're coming from, with wanting, because how do you get enough people to play a sport without looking outside the walls? But on the other hand, how do you do it without angering the residents that live here, that bring a family member or somebody that came to stay for the week? And I think we got to find a way to put it in the policies that there's some type of limitation so it doesn't get abused.
Okay. Any other comments from the committee? Go ahead, Mary Kay.
My question is basically the money that is coming in from these guests. It's not going to the club. It's a question of going to the rec center. Okay, so it basically affects the sports clubs, the card clubs. Not basically the craft clubs, because most of have them in their bylaws that guests cannot take, classes. There's no charge for them just to come in into the room. I mean, you're not charging a visitor to come in and be a guest in a craft club because they're not doing anything.
According to Appendix B, that you would be charged.
Oh, okay.
No. If there are passes participation down here.
Oh, yes, you're right. Correction. So if you're a club visitor.
A visitor.
Where you don't do anything.
And I think that's where most of the clubs get confused, whether the person that's coming in is a visitor or a guest. Like at the quilt club in the wood shop, we do not have guests. We have visitors. No guests can come in and use the equipment. No guests can take classes. And the same with the quilt club. So we don't have guests. We have visitors. And a visitor can't, do anything either. So I think we need to clarify sometimes that visitor and guest, because to me, they're interchangeable. They mean the same thing to me. If I'm a visitor, I'm a guest. I'm a guest of you, So I think that's where a lot of the confusion comes in also. And if it's in the club bylaws that a guest or visitor, can come in, it's like you say, it's kind of a sticky wicky, because if I want my sister that's here for 2 months, staying with me, and she comes to the meeting after the third time, she can't come anymore. And she's just sitting there, she's not doing anything, but then she would have to pay. That doesn't seem right. That's all I got.
Okay. Vicki?
I hate to say it, but it's really vague in the RRMPs. Really vague.
Oh, yeah, I don't disagree.
Sorry, I hate to say it.
I'm just thinking about two different clubs that I belong to, actually 3 different clubs that I belong to. One of them is Zymergy, where we make beer and wine. And if someone who is a non-resident comes in as my guest, that person can sit in the chair and watch me make the beer and the wine. They can't do anything except take photos of me making beer and wine. Yoga is something different in that if I have a guest at the house, or there's a rec card holder who doesn't belong to the yoga club, that person can be a guest, sign in, pay the $5 fee for the class, and participate in the class. There's no special equipment required, except the yoga mat and maybe yoga blankets that that person is going to bring in order to participate. We go at Zymergy. Zymergy occasionally throughout the year will have music. And we pay, whether we're members of the club or we're not members of the club, most of the time there's a fee to get in to listen to the musical performance. We can bring a guest, one guest per member, and that person likewise pays that $5 to come in and listen to the performance and see the performance. I think I'm going to go back to the, it's all fruit, but it's not the same. And I think maybe that at this point, I think we maybe agree that it needs to be modified, but like right here and now, I don't know that we know exactly what the best way to modify would be.
Any other discussion on the committee? Okay, I know the audience is waiting for this one, so come on. Bring it. Come on down.
Good afternoon, everybody. My name's Annie Harrop. I'm the president of the Bunko Club. My rec number is 129202. I don't know why it's that, because I'm the one who bought the house. And my husband went one. I'm just kidding, sorry. But sorry, Jack. Anyway, so here's, I understand where you're all going with this, but we charge $1 for bunko and $2 for gas. We've had this happen, and this is how it's going to affect us if this law gets passed. We've had people bring up to 4 guests. So now I'm going to ask one person who can bring 4 guests to come early, go to the rec center or the pool, pay an additional $20 on top of the $2, on top of the $1, to bring family members to have fun for one night. I understand your dilemma, but how do we do that and still stay in business as a club? So please think of that when you guys are passing this law. For those of us who don't have big equipment, we have dice. Please, because that will kill a lot of clubs. What you're asking is, what you're telling us by putting this law in, and you're not doing it, please don't take this away. It's about to come out of my mouth. But what you're saying to us clubs that are not very big, we don't care about you. We're going to enforce this law, whether you exist or not. Please take that into consideration. It's very important to the survival of a lot of small clubs who depend on visitors to come, who have family members or guests coming in from out of town, or people who just want to come and just play for a couple, who are snowbirds and that, and don't want to be members. It's a big deal for a lot of small clubs.
Your message is heard.
Thank you.
We have to do something that is fair and equitable for all of the clubs.
Jack, just an addendum to that. I know in one of the card clubs, we've actually had people move to Sun City West because they've been here as guests and paid that little guest fee and had such a darn good time that they ended up moving to Sun City West. So let's not make it hard for those people.
Sure, come on up. But this is the last one. No, I'm just kidding. Just kidding.
I totally understand her, and I totally understand what Karen just said. Now, do smaller clubs not get rated the exact same as bigger clubs? And I'm using softball because it's the only one I'm a member of, okay? Because we're a bigger club, what is there, 200, 300 members from Sun City West that live here, own houses here just like me, pay their recreation fees. I'm allowed to play 1 time a week. That's it. It's only the recreation board says, Mr. Malkins, get in your car, drive to 18 miles, round trip, and now you can play down in Dirt Bowl in Sun City, okay? Because we're such a bigger club, are you treating us differently? Because now you have 100 members from out of our own community, Sun City, they come and play here for free. I'm allowed to use the place once. They can come up to 4 times a week. Because if you're a member of the other leagues, which I'm not eligible to play, because I'm an American League member, I'm not allowed to play in the other leagues. I have to go there. But they can come and play here 4 times a week. How is that fair on a big scale or a small club? How's it fair?
So the softball issue, what you're describing is the commingling and the drafting and the leagues that you all have that the other clubs don't have. And what you're experiencing is not a policy of the rec centers or the board or this committee. It's your club that's doing that. So this is totally apples and oranges. I mean, they're not even fruit.
Okay, so I'm going to go back to my original question that I asked you, Jack. Who makes the final decision that says 100 people from Sun City can come and play where we've invested $170,000 and they've invested $1,500? They play 4 times a week from a different community, but Mr. Malkins, you live here, you own a house, you pay twice the rec fees. I pay $1,018. The rec fees for Sun City, a household pays $499. Where in the big scheme of things does whoever makes the final decision, whether it's the governing board, the recreation department, whatever committee, why would residents of Sun City West be able to use their own field once and Sun City residents can use it 4 times a week? There has to be a rationale somewhere in there.
That's a great question. I
Okay.
struggle with it also.
All right. You guys are unique. Keep that in mind. You guys became a softball club in 1999, 2001? Which one?
It was in 1999.
1999? Okay. 2001, you guys started the commingle, correct? 2002?
You
Okay.
say it's commingle. I say it's reciprocal agreement.
All right. We don't have too much time because it's well over, but your club came up with this commingle thing. Not, Ron, does it say commingle in the tennis bylaws? No. Eileen's not here for pickleball. I don't think Chris is here from lawn bowl. Is there any other sporting president here? They don't have commingle. Commingle, I'm gonna be very blunt, and it's gonna be recorded. Commingle does not exist in the RRMPs. Reciprocity does. And I know what you guys are trying to do and get through, and Bill's been very active with you as well. So as I said earlier, they are working on something to help so that we can help tennis as well with their league play, and lawn bowling with their tournaments, and pickleball with their tournaments. But again, you guys are all different, you're all unique, and we have to find a middle ground for it to be consistent on a policy level. And we're working on it, I promise.
Can I say you something?
Sure.
Sun City Grand, who was also a part of this original agreement with us, in 2010, they negated this and said, we're more concerned with the members of our own community than we are with other communities. And the governing board, that's why I asked the original question, the governing board made that decision and said, why would we let people come and play 4 to 5 times a week and our own members can only play once? They negated it, and the governing board can do that by just saying, okay, I'll sign up, no more. Because there's a contingency plan already in progress. If you vote this down today, tomorrow, the contingency plan says we're all set, ready to go.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yes, Karen.
I have a question in that I know it doesn't apply to what he's talking about, but some of the clubs that were having problems with charging the guests come, like I think Joel mentioned tennis at one time or that. And I know you're embarrassed to ask them for money when you can go where they are and you're not having to hand anything over. But having just come through a club that had to raise money to get into a room, clubs can raise money. You can have fundraisers. On some of these things, maybe the way to go is start looking at your options for some fundraisers, whether it's garage sales. I just helped a while back, one of our neighbors is Rock Hounds. I gave them a whole bunch of stuff because they were having a sale to raise money for something that you could offset the cost if you can raise some funds to help offset some of these fees within your club to keep it where it's more reasonable to do it.
So most of these clubs are social clubs, and it would have to be within the membership. So that's something you just have
and
to.
that's what we did. We donated the stuff to the club. The club had a garage sale. and sold it. We actually even had somebody that moved that donated their whole house full of furniture, and we had the estate sale as a club. But there's, maybe start thinking outside the box a little bit of what you could do to raise some funds on your own to help mitigate some of it too. Then we can get the words to where they'll fit around the box that you go in. But you would pay the fee instead of the participant that came from outside of the area.
Okay. Lynn?
Hi. Getting back to Appendix B. Is there a reason why this has to be a one-size-fits-all? Can't each charter club put in their RRNPs how they would like that, or excuse me, in the bylaws, how they would like that to be handled? For example, we have people who want to come into the club and sit down with their friend and see if they want to do clay. So they're allowed up to 6 times, and that's it. Either you sign up and you take a class and you join, or you don't come back. And we also have grandmas and grandpas who bring their grandkids in and play around with clay. They're not going to do anything great, but they're going to mush around and have fun. All these products are owned by their friends, by themselves. Like if I took my grandkids in, they use my clay, they use my tools. And, eventually they might have some little piece that'll be fired with my stuff. It doesn't fit the same as it would for sports or maybe for glass, but I think it should be individual by club.
Well, I think that that's something that we'll have to consider I think what you're suggesting is that the club could pay that $5 daily fee for each person.
No.
No?
I'm saying, why would they pay for a fee that we're already paying for the product?
Okay, so you're suggesting that this daily fee not be paid at all?
Correct. Even if they do firing with us, I have to pay for my granddaughter's firing or glaze or anything. But I supply all the product. Why am I going to have to pay for that?
And that's the question.
Right. I mean, I can go in and I can go swimming and just splash around and use the stuff. And I understand you got to buy chlorine, you got to have maintenance on everything. But anyway.
Yeah, and that's the question we're faced with.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah, Tom.
I think part of it comes down to there is a liability aspect of non-residents being involved in activities, but I think we need to distinguish between a house guest and a friend of mine who lives in Glendale coming and being a guest. It's 2 different classifications of guests, and I think there should be a distinction there.
Yeah, the only distinction that is made is a non-member, if I remember correctly.
Right. Either they're a card holder, a rec center card holder, or they're not. Well, a house guest is not going to be. They may be here for a week, 2 weeks, 2 months. And that should be treated differently, I think, than I've got friends in Glendale who want to come out and do some activity with us.
Okay, so again, I guess another variable in this whole issue.
Yeah, Jack, this is Kathy. I think that would be really difficult to try to enforce something like that. I think we need to do some more research among ourselves, read our RRNPs again, really read this appendix, and see if we can't come up with something.
Okay, yeah,
I don't think we can do it today.
No, we're not going to do it today. Yeah. Yes.
Tracy Anderson, 132045. I need a clarification here. I'm hearing that, from what I'm hearing so far, it's like this committee is going to change this to whatever you decide upon. I thought that a committee was supposed to come to consensus about things and make recommendations, not actually change the different policies and statements. So,
and that's effectively, yes, what we would do. That's
okay.
what we
well,
would do.
I was hearing other things, so that's why I wanted to
Yeah,
clarify.
no, it's good clarification.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Ron Wambach, 100988. I'm the president of the tennis club. And what I'm trying to look at here is reciprocal play, primarily what we're talking about in guest fees. You made a couple of suggestions that we should be paying for these people that come in as guests. I don't mind paying for somebody that's coming in as a guest when they're coming in from Portobello and 3 of us or 4 of us are going together and going to hit the ball around and play some tennis. But reciprocal play and league play that we're trying to get understood is totally different. For 20 years, we've been doing this, at least 20 years. I've been doing it for 15 years, where we've got leagues that we play in that are sanctioned leagues between communities such as Portobello, Pebble Creek, Festival, Grand, Trilogy. We have teams, there's like 3-0 teams, 3-5 teams, 4-0 teams, men's teams, women's teams, and we travel and play there. They come here and play here. And we've been doing that for over, like I said, I've been here since 2005 and doing this since 2005. Never ever have I paid a fee at any of these other facilities, and we've never charged them to pay a fee to come and play here because we all understood we were doing this as a reciprocity, home and home. All of a sudden last year we get told, no, we have to be paying $5 for these, or $3.50, whatever it was at the time, for these people to come and play here. I said, that's absolutely ridiculous. I said, we're playing out there. They're playing here. What don't we understand about this concept of league play? I don't care if it's league play and it's league play for lawn bowling or pickleball or racquetball or bocce ball. If you have a sanctioned league and you're going someplace else, I don't know if there are too many lawn bowling leagues that you can get in, but if you have it, why are there shouldn't be any fees. This is an automatic activity. If you have a sanctioned item and you have authorization to be playing there, your liability insurance should have no problem whatsoever, because you should be looking at an authorized person playing on your facility.
Okay.
And they should be covered automatically.
Thank you. Casey, do you want to address that?
Okay. As I said to softball, we are working on it. And that word liability, certificate of liability, is one of the main pieces of the puzzle. So when you guys go and play at these other facilities, we just want to make sure everybody is covered. So you guys bring your folks over here. You have 7, right? 7 communities that come over here every Friday, October through April. Okay, so I'm just going to put this into a little bit perspective. If we did league play like that with pickleball, we couldn't accommodate that. If we could never do that with softball. They have 1 field. So again, the uniqueness and consistency makes it a very, very difficult task for us. But as we sit right now, they are working on some documentation and verbiage. Cliff and Pete have been working with our insurance to make sure things look good. I believe it's going to go through our attorney to make sure verbiage looks correct, and hopefully we'll have something to present soon. I believe it's a topic at the workshop this week. Yes, so make sure you tune in 9 o'clock this Friday. And it's going to probably be a little bit more detailed.
Okay, the last one.
Yep, Annie Harrop, Bunko. So what I forgot to say earlier was this one thing. I understand the fee for the rec center. I have no problem paying for my grandkids or guests $3.50 or $5 because they get to use the facility all day long. So they can go swim, they can play bocce, they can play miniature golf, they can use the pool 3 times. But when you're asking a guest who doesn't come to play during the day, but to only come and play a game, whichever it is, in the evening or in the day, that's the only thing they're asking for. Now you're asking them to pay $5 for an hour or 2, not the whole entire day. So that's where the distinction is. Yes, $3.55, you get to use whatever facility is on that list, entire day. But you're asking people to pay $5 for an hour too.
Understood, understood. Okay, we're gonna close off discussion of this. I think we can agree that this is a very sensitive subject. It's one that's controversial. It's one that we're gonna have to work out. So we will take that and we'll set up a, we'll take that and address that. So the last topic I would, yes?
So the action is it's tabled for further discussion, is coming up at the next meeting.
Well, yes, it will be, it's tabled and it will come up at the next meeting. Okay, the last thing we're going to do, you can bring up my PowerPoint, please. Okay, I'm going to talk about what the mission statement is of this committee. We've got when you look at when you go online to BoardDocs, you'll see two documents there. You'll see a Word document or a PDF, which is a text document that all of these members have read, they've agreed to, and we will abide by that. This presentation is going to do two things. It's going to tell you what that document is, what they've all agreed to do, so that you all can see, and then I'm going to answer two questions at the end before we have further discussion, and we're going to do some math. So I bet when you came in today, you never thought you'd be doing math. Oops, got to point it here. Oh, right, thank you. Helps turn the power on. Wow. Okay, there we go. So we're going to talk about what the purpose is, the expectations of all of us on the committee. I think it's important that you know what we will and will not do. We'll talk about what the club liaison function is, and this is as much for them as it is for you. Evidently, that has not been clear in the past, so we're going to make sure that it does get cleared up. And then we'll answer those questions that I promised. So per the bylaws, I'm going to give you the official language out of the bylaws. Article 6, Section 6.01, committees shall be established by the governing board to assist the board in performing its duties. In this respect, committees recommend policy changes, analyze problems, and review operations as required to support the board's oversight responsibilities. Committees also support the general manager by providing analysis and recommendation based on their expertise in specific areas. We heard that earlier today when I went through the committee responsibilities. So that's the official language. This committee is one of 5 standing committees. As the previous slide said, it assists the governing board with the governance and strategic tasks of surrounding Sun City West chartered clubs. Tasks include, but are not limited to, taking care of the RRMPs. The previous version of this committee did that. They did a wonderful job in getting all of those updated. And those govern all chartered clubs. And then again, researching and investigating issues that need to be resolved. They were also going to be, we're the two-way liaison between the clubs and the governing board. We partner with Casey, Bill Schwind, the staff, on how to solve problems and direct things for the clubs to provide, when things are escalated. We research the ways and means as well to increase the overall club experience and also to make things more efficient or more effective for the clubs as well as for the rec centers, because it's a two-way street. What we do not do is we're not responsible for running your clubs. We assist the governing board with issues and the escalation of issues, but this committee does not run your club. Now, each of the committee members is expected to actively participate and contribute to all of the meetings, learn about the chartered clubs, especially the ones that they are the liaisons for. That's important that they do that. Bring forth all the ideas and the reasons why they're there, and search for optimal answers and solutions. There's no such thing as a perfect solution where everybody's happy. If that is the case, I've never yet seen one in my 40 years of professional work. So we're going to search for optimal. We want them to conduct themselves professionally and collegially, so it means positive relationships, be judicious in their use of social media. That means that every one of us are an extension of the governing board. I am the governing board, and that means that they are bound by governing board processes, expectations, those types of things. So if there's an issue that any one of these people have, they're part of that process internally to get it addressed. They're not out there pounding on their keyboard, raising hell. We expect them to recuse themselves from discussions in which they have a vested interest. And remember, as I said earlier, that this committee serves the board. We are an extension of that board. We expect them to attend all chartered club committee meetings and submit work products, etc., as expected. And we also like for them to attend the governing board, workshop, and regular meetings as well. So I don't think it's unreasonable the things that we ask them to do. They're not going to be able to do all of them. People have real lives, so they're going to miss some certain things. So that's understandable, but I think those are reasonable requests. So what we don't do, we don't conduct the day-to-day operation of managing chartered clubs. That's up to you. That's your job. You've signed up to do that. But I don't want to say that, but an extension of that is some of these people on here, including me, are officers of clubs. They are not prevented from being officers of clubs, just as governing board members are not prevented from being officers of clubs. They will not use their position as a committee member to influence persons outside of the committee. So they won't perform favors, they won't ask for favors, those kinds of things. So this is, fully transparent. Don't ask for them to do favors for you because they won't do it. There will be the club liaison. The liaison is a person who helps organizations or groups to work together and provide information to each other. So they're the go-between. They're not necessarily your resolver, but they are your single point of contact. Now, I want to be clear, this single point of contact does not replace Casey. Casey is your day-to-day operational type stuff. You bring issues to Casey that you have about, what it takes to operate your club, to make it run, to do what it does. The SPOC, the single point of contact, is the first escalation point after Casey. And then Casey and the SPOC, Casey and the liaison, will work together to help you. The liaisons will also keep in contact with their clubs so that they get to know you as the officers, let you know what's going on in the club's bylaws. They're not going to become experts on it, but they'll have an idea of what your bylaws are, understand the RRPs, so that as you go through these issues and discuss things, they'll have information that they can research from and rely upon to help guide you. And they'll do some surveys, that kind of thing. And one of the important things here is how the Chartered Club Committee can help the clubs. You know, we have a great, what I call ecosystem here, the club ecosystem. You know, we need to make sure that it can continue to do the things we want it to do. So their duties are to offer advice. I'm gonna get a little drink here. So they'll offer some advice when requested, some guidance. They'll share information that will help you as officers and club members deal with your clubs. They make suggestions and recommendations only. They are not resolvers. So your resolvers are going to be either operations, which is Casey, or the governing board, or in some cases it might be a combination of the both, depending upon the issue. But your liaisons are not the resolvers. And then I will periodically review how we're doing with the liaisons, what they're doing, what their value they're adding, that type of thing. So, I've touched on a number of things here, but I'm going to answer 2 questions before I go any further, before I open the floor. So I talked a bit about who do you contact when, Casey or the liaison or the governing board or me or whatever. What's the big deal about that? Why should I care? You know, how do I know what's an operational issue? I keep making that distinction. Operations versus governance and strategy. How do we get that clarified? Why the distinction on contacting? Wow, that sounds rather hierarchical. It's Big Brother coming into effect. Why can't I just talk to whomever I want and get my stuff resolved? Then I can't keep track of who's handling my stuff now. Or Casey gets, I've gotten contacted by 27 people from the same club for the same issue. You know, what's going on here? Who's in charge? I bet you had none of those questions in the past, have you? So, the reason that we're going to make this distinction about who to contact and when is to reduce the number of communication channels. That is, speaking and listening. Okay, those are the channels, and every time we have one of those or use one of those, there's opportunities for miscommunication. Now a channel, speaking or listening. So if I'm going to talk to Tim here. Hi, Tim. I'm going to talk to Tim. We're going to speak and listen in turn. Speak and listen. Those are asynchronous. Because if you're doing bisynchronous, then you're both speaking and listening at the same time, and not much is going to get through. So we're going to have these types of channels. So the number of channels depends upon the number of parties involved. So I'm going to talk to Tim. So N, now we're doing math, N equals 2, okay? And the formula is the number of people involved times the number of people involved minus 1. So if I have 2 people, and I have to but the number of channels that I'm going to have, Lynn, what's the answer to that formula for me talking to Tim? No, it's 2. You're retired, I get it. So there are 2 people, and the number of channels is n minus 1, so 2 minus 1 gives me 2. Okay, so now I'm going to double the number of people. I'm going to double the number of people that I have. So whereas I had 2 channels between just me and Tim, I've now increased the number of people by 100%, so I'm up to 4 people now. The number of channels that I need, 12, has gone up 6 times. Now, how does that work? So there's 1 to 2, 3 to 4, 5 to 6, 7 to 8, 9 to 10, and 11 to 12. So for those 4 people to talk together, there's got to be 12 channels for listening and speaking. So I've doubled the number of people, but I've got 6 times the number of channels. So now I'm going to add 2 people to that conversation. So now I've got 6 people, and instead of 12 channels, I've got 30 channels. So I got my 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 that I had before. There's 13 and 14, 15 and 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, and I got the people on the ends. One more time, and then the people on the ends. So that's with 6 people. I got 30 channels. Now, if everybody in the club system, the club ecosystem, spoke to everybody on this committee and to the rec centers, to operations, we got 10 people up here. We've got, say, 5 people, including Casey. We've got 96 chartered clubs with 4 officers each. Okay, some clubs have more than 4, but everybody has at least 4. So that means there's 384 officers. So 10 plus 5 plus 384 is 399 parties involved in talking, okay? If I take that math problem, the number of channels is over 158,000 channels. And that's kind of scary. So that's obviously a worst case scenario. It's probably not that bad, but even if it's only 10% of that, that's still almost 16,000 channels. So what do we want to do to help address that? We're going to have 1 club liaison per club, 1 club operations person, and we've got that, so that's like the president or the vice president or somebody designated by the club. I'm sorry, that's Casey. So that's Casey in the upper right corner there. And then down in the lower part, we've got a club officer. So we got those channels. So we've got, when there's an operational topic, that's between the club officer and Casey. You got 2 channels. When you've got a strategic or governance issue, that's between the club liaison and the club officer. It is also between the club ops management, between Casey and the liaison, because if it gets escalated, they're going to talk about it. And if everybody gets together to talk about it, we've got 6 channels. That's all it takes. So the communications burden in this case is placed upon the liaisons and Casey. But there's also a burden placed upon the club in having only 1 person handle an issue. So whoever that person may be designated. So what's happening, in addition to reducing the number of channels, the right people are having the right conversations. So it may sound, why are we going through this? Why are we, doing math when I'm retired? It's to help try and get our hands around and to answer his question from earlier, who makes the decisions? Let's make sure we get the right people making the right choices and the right discussions. So here's the second question I'm going to answer. How do I know when a topic is operational versus when it is governance or strategic? Now, rule of thumb. A rule of thumb is something that is accurate many times, maybe not all the time, but it's a place to give you some guidance and to start from. So the rule of thumb for an operational topic is it impacts how your club is run. The immediate impact, the immediate topic affects your club, and the resolver is the operations organization. Okay? If it's strategic, it impacts the what or the why. Why does your club exist? What does it do? You know, that's more existential type of question. The topic can pertain to multiple clubs, not just yours alone, such as the Appendix B discussion. The resolver is the governing board working through this committee first. And the resolver is the governing board working through chartered clubs and operations. So there's two resolvers, two different flavors of that resolver for a governance or strategic issue. And the club entry point to the governing board is through this committee. So coming directly to a governing board meeting and standing up there and saying something about your club will probably get bounced back to this committee. So I would save yourself some time and come to this committee first. So that's the end of the math lesson. Are there any questions? Okay, Lynn?
I first want to say I'm sorry for not paying attention.
Come on down, Lynn.
Hi, Lynn, 129120. Jack, I'm very sorry for losing concentration and not being ready to be called on.
No worries.
Thank you. The other question I had is, you have a remarkable team, and I think I'm looking forward to whoever we have this time around for our liaison. I'm wondering, with all these people, how is Casey going to handle this workload?
Casey, I'm going to let you answer that.
Did you see that blank look that he had me as a demo?
Okay.
No, so that's why we are reestablishing new staff. So instead of one brain, I now have two brains. Tim Peterson will be helping with the club track portion. He'll also be doing a lot of the facility tours, as will Christy. She will be helping me a lot with the bylaws and a lot of documentation. Of course, we still have Dory as well. So now that it's not just Dory and myself, we're trying to get everybody up to speed. The nice thing about Tim is he's been here for many, many years. If you are over at Beardsley, he knows how these clubs are ran. So there's some good things that are already implemented through him. Christy, are you overwhelmed yet with everything? Oh, yeah. Yep. So small steps, baby steps, and I'm hoping with the liaison and the assignments that they're tasks that will help. And I think it helped quite a bit last year as well. I couldn't imagine having to talk, and actually, to answer your question, I would please only like to communicate with the officers, primarily presidents. That's part of the channel issue. If I'm talking to the president and vice president because the president doesn't want to do their job, that's another issue. It happens. But me having one source per club helps a lot rather than working with multiple, because I'm not going to remember your names. I know most of you, not most of you, I know a handful of you here, and your presidents. So I've worked with you already. You've set really good boundaries, and I have so far appreciated everybody in the last couple months going over these bylaws, earning a little bit more trust from clubs with the rec centers, being able to reintroduce what our policies mean, not what we're trying to enforce. I think there's more meaning behind the enforcement. And ultimately, to answer your question, not too many people communicating. So having that less channel piece is actually pretty informative, Jack, so good job.
If I can sneak in one more quick one, will we keep our liaisons we had earlier this year? You did say only one liaison, and we had two.
Well, I think craft clubs, yeah, Karen and Kathy will continue to pair up.
Great,
Yeah.
thank you.
Hi, Patty Burleson, 123-778. I just have a quick question. Are you thinking about reestablishing some of the meetings that you had with presidents of the different rec centers? We used to have a meeting when George came. He had got all the presidents of like Beardsley or Johnson or Palm Ridge together, and we had like a dinner meeting and just discussed issues that were pertinent to maybe our clubs that were there. Just wondering if you thought about doing
I
that
actually
again.
had not thought about that, but I will take that under advisement. That's, yep.
We canceled those this last year because COVID was going back here, so we just squashed them. But they're meet and greets pre-COVID. They had them the beginning of the year at each rec center.
Yeah, we had pizza and stuff like that, and yeah, that's good. I'd forgotten about that. Thank you.
Craig Holm, president of the softball club. Just want to clarify a couple of things, Jack. You said that our issue with Sun City is our club problem. Well, I disagree with that completely. In 2000, our club did the co-mingle with Sun City, and in 2002, the governing board was going to take away our charter because they were violating the PPNRs. And with that, the governing board had to issue a waiver, which is still what they have to do because it violates the waiver that they did in 2002. So it is your responsibility. And you need to know this history too. And if you don't, I have a thing that I gave to Casey that has all this explained. Let me see. And then, so their waiver is there. And the reason they did this, in Sun City West, we had 100 players in 2000. And Sun City had 50. And in 2002, Sun City Grand had, or maybe later than that, 50. And so that's why they did this, and that's why the waiver was signed. Now, we have 350 players. Sun City has over 200, so that's not an issue anymore. The issue is, does it violate our PPNRs? And if they violate our PPNRs and they're not going to issue a waiver, then we have to make a plan. I have a plan, well, not me. We have a plan to go either way because we're going to vote again in November as far as a club. But the governing board can pull that waiver anytime they want, and that is in the PPNRs. They can pull that waiver anytime. But anyway, so that's the history. And as far as Casey, what she does, they have an open door policy. And that's tough for me to as a president, unless you give me a 9mm to force all this stuff you just put up there, no matter what your math is. Did you find it? And so when you say that, you can't have both things both ways. You can't have because Casey will talk to anybody, and she gets 1,000 emails a month from other people. And some of it's very frustrating for me as a president, that's for sure, because I try to represent everyone. But bottom line, and they say, well, it's a majority. Well, it's not really a majority. If you buy a house here, the PPNRs protect you as an individual. And if you violate that, then you're violating the PPNRs. Now, there's some things in our club that we do by majority vote, and those are club bylaws. And so we try to work those, and Casey's been wonderful working with me on those and the problem that I have when I work with Casey is I've got a whole bunch of people coming in from the outside that are giving her input, and then Casey has to say, then I have to say to them, did Casey tell you the same thing that she told me? Yes, she did. And so that's the problem you have with your communication, is that the members trust their president and their boards, and you allow them to govern their clubs, because bottom line, with me, I got a whole bunch of ex-jocks that think they know everything and what they do is right. And so you have to take all that in consideration. So with that, that's a history of the softball club, However it's decided, we have to live with it. Is it right or wrong? As a president, I have one vote, and so I don't have an opinion. But I know that we have to fix it one way or another.
Well, and I think that's one thing we can agree upon, that we've got some issues and challenges, let's put it that way, some challenges that we need to look at.
Do you want a copy of the history of the softball club? Sounds like you people
I think
need to know it.
Casey gave it to me, but I'll have to read it again.
Okay, I encourage you to do that.
What exactly is your vote in November? What is it stating?
In our bylaws, it states we will vote once a year because the governing board can pull the waiver anytime, and the majority of the people can vote, or well, they have to vote once a year to
Continue reciprocity.
continue doing it. And another thing that bothers me a lot is a lot of input from Sun City comes into our people that govern us, and and I don't like that at all. But everything should come through you guys, and it should be representing Sun City West, not have anything to do with what Sun City problems are or what they're doing. And it should be just Sun City people that we represent.
Okay. Can we get your record number, please, for the record?
123608.
1236. Okay, thank you. Thank you. Okay, we're getting to the end here. Are there any other comments from the committee?
Casey, you mentioned it when you said like pickleball, if you went through, you wouldn't be able to have enough courts versus tennis for things. Is there a way that we could see comparisons on some of these, plus then factor out a percentage of some of these things that should, somehow we have to factor in people who don't belong to a club but want to use a facility that are a resident and pay for them, so that we could look at some of the, it would give us a better picture of what we're really dealing with as options that we would have. And then also with the people like the card clubs that are using a room, not something that's outdoor maintained, more people. In other words, if I want to go use a room at Kuntz as a resident, I can't just walk in there and do it. I have to join a club. So, that's a different scenario too, to where we can try to look at what the scenarios are and evaluate each scenario, and should there be a percentage that's factored in for residents who want to use an outdoor facility so that they have time factored in too, is we're trying to come up with what's fair to really have a better understanding of how some of these different clubs are affected.
Yeah, so we have a good problem, in my opinion, and we are growing to be very large, and we're having a hard time just trying to accommodate our community. So allowing those outsiders in with some of the clubs has been an issue, a challenge, we'll use that word. We have, for tennis and pickleball, they have hold my court, so it is identified on whether it's club or resident use. For both clubs. And then softball actually posts their schedule on their external website, so that is on there, and it shows you where they're playing, which each league is playing. Lawn bowls, I don't believe have anything, but they are extremely active in the tournament world. Bocce's pretty limited. They don't do too much. They do some, but not a lot. Am I right, Carol?
You are correct.
Okay. Ooh, good. Sure. So to Lynn's question, I better figure out how I'm gonna get this done, right? Yeah. But honestly, Jack, whoever is the liaison for the sporting clubs, this would be a good research piece for us to work together on.
Okay, yes, I agree. This is a good problem to have. We're a victim of our own success. But I think we'll get a resolution to it. We are challenged this year. Okay, anything else from the committee? Carol, Kathy?
No, good meeting.
Yes, I agree. Great job, Jack.
Oh, thank you. Okay, last call for people from the audience. All right. Okay, with that, then since there are none, the meeting is adjourned. Thank you for attending.